thereof or whatnot, like what legally comes off after an accident between two vehicles, either two PSVs or maybe two private vehicles. Then the second one will be between a vehicle that is now either a PSV or a private with a pedestrian.
Cross town, or you're in a mat or in your vehicle, and probably there's traffic, and then you realize there's an accident that occurred between two parties. What usually happens? Hello and welcome to the Sisters-in-Law podcast. My name is Beverly Mokaya and I'm here with
Aquila Mokaya. In this podcast, we discuss matters law.
From talking about employment matters to family law matters to commercial disputes and other forms of dispute resolution, we've got you covered.
Remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment down below. So in today's podcast, we'll be discussing accidents generally, on the types of accidents that we have and the liability, and also like the compensation thereof or whatnot, like what legally comes off after an accident. Mm-hmm. So the types of accidents we are going to be discussing today are the three major ones, which is one between two vehicles, either two PSVs or maybe two private vehicles. And then the second one will be between a vehicle that is now either a PSV or a private with a pedestrian. So in this instance, it will be into two, where we'll discuss where the pedestrian is hit and suffers from injuries, and the other one will discuss when the pedestrian is hit and suffers from injuries from the accident and dies out of those same injuries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we'll start off with the one where it's two vehicles, and let's say no one died. For example, you're walking across town, or you're in a mat or in your vehicle, and probably there's traffic, and then you realize there's an accident that occurred between two parties. What usually happens? So normally at the scene, we usually have, of course, an investigation officer, right? An investigating officer. They're called IOs when you go to court. So once an accident happens, you will see, let's say like 40 minutes after, you will see probably a police officer has come and they're investigating. Mostly they're usually trying to determine who is to blame in the accident, because the person who is to blame is the one who's supposed to pay. Ideally, the insurance companies are supposed to pay in such an instance. So when this happens, let's say, for example, if you are one of the people, one of the motor vehicle owners, or let's say you're the driver, once the police comes, you will probably go to the police station. But first of all, of course, people usually try to settle it between themselves. Yeah. Let's say, for example, if you have hit my side mirror and this is how much it should cost, are you willing to pay, so that everyone goes their way? But there are instances where, let's say, it's a bit extreme or severe, or parties are not agreed as to who is supposed to pay in such an instance. That's where the police comes in, and maybe you'll have to involve a lawyer later. Yeah. So now what usually happens, once the police comes, you will go to the police station, and then the police officer will fill something called an abstract. Yeah, a police abstract. So in the abstract, that is where they will write the plate number of the vehicles, who is to blame, the name of the driver, the insurance company that covers that specific vehicle. And these details are very important because they will help you even as you go to try and get your lawyer to be able to deal with this case. Yeah. So once you get a police abstract and you are unable to solve with the other party, because nowadays we encourage that if your lawyer can talk to the other lawyer and have the matter settled, it's easier because it will take less time. Yes. Because now if you go to court, what will happen, so long as you have the abstract, you'll go to your lawyer, they will file a case in court. depending on how much you have spent on repairing the
parts that were damaged in
the parts that were damaged during the accident, you will, of course, you will have to come with the it's called the receipts to show how much you spent on repairing the vehicle. And then now once you go to court, they'll just say that on such and such a day, when I was driving along this place, my vehicle collided with this vehicle. And then you will say probably the other person is to blame, etc, etc. And then once you have your costs of repair, you'll be able to get special damages. Now, maybe you can explain what special damages.
So also, it's important to remember that in the abstract, they would mostly, because as they go to make a decision on who is liable, there could be a percentage of liability that could be shared between the two drivers. So like if, for example, it's between you and I, and I caused the damage by myself, for example, like the whole, I just came, maybe your car was stationary and I came and hit it maybe from the back or something, then ideally I'm supposed to pay for your damages 100%. So even if you go to court, they're going to try to apportion the liability depending on who is liable on which percentage. But if, for example, both of us were coming from different directions and then we hit each other, but you are the one who was on the wrong side, maybe you are overlapping and me was on the right side of the road, we could share the percentage of liabilities, just so we make it just and fair. If I caused a bit of the accident, if the accident was caused by my maybe negligence or something like that, then it means that we can share the liability. So most definitely, whatever is awarded in court is dependent on the amount, the percentage. So normally you could find that the parties would maybe try to agree outside to say, you take 30% liability, I take 70% liability, so that even if we say the total amount of the repairs was maybe 500,000, I would pay for 30, you pay for 30%, I pay for 70%.
So in this instance now, of course, if parties don't agree, it's after the investigating officer has determined the level of liability, they will put it in the abstract. So that you will, it's something on the abstract, you will see it's written contributory negligence. So let's say person X contributed this percentage in terms of negligence. So now what would happen if you went to court? For example, you say that the costs of repair amounted to 500,000, and you say, and as for the police abstract, it stated that, let's say you are to be blamed for the accident at, let's say, a percentage of 30%. It means out of that 500,000, you will only get 70%, because 30% of it was
my own fault.
Was your own fault. So that's what would happen. The important thing for you to do in this instance is to keep the receipts, because now you know now that something called, I was talking about special damages
earlier.
That means that special damages is something that can be quantified. It's something that you have exact figures to it.
That for example, be calculated.
Yes, you calculated. For example, I replaced my windshield at 70,000. And the company has given you a receipt for that. Or I replaced my side mirror at this amount. So when you're going to court, you just file that. And once you have submitted those receipts, the court will most definitely just give you the award.
But at a point where you do not have the receipt, they would most of the time they would give the market price of the item. So maybe if it was a windscreen and let's say the market price is maybe 15,000 or 20,000, they will award you that amount of money. But to be safe, because maybe you bought at a high-end shop and it was more expensive there, to be safe is to ensure you always have your receipts.
And also, mostly with special damages, unless you bring the receipts, because they usually say that it has to be specifically pleaded. So you have to specifically attach the receipts, and you'll actually see the importance of this even as you go to discuss about, let's say, if you were injured and you went to hospital, paid some bills and things like that, it will come in very handy. So I think on the issue of two motor vehicles, and no one else was injured, that is mostly what you would need.
So now when we go to where a pedestrian is hit, let's say by a PSV, for example, not hating on them, but just for example, a PSV hits a pedestrian, so, and they're injured, not to a point of death. So when you go to court, because not most definitely that you must go to court, but if you guys cannot agree, depending also on the degree of the damages, you will have to either decide if I was on the wrong as the pedestrian, what is my percentage of the liability. Like, it's always important. They always have to calculate the percentage of the liability. Let's say, for example, a car hit you on a highway where there is no zebra crossing and you are crossing the road. So you see, on such an issue, you are the one who has the liability, the higher percentage of the liability.
Yes, exactly.
Because you are crossing at the wrong point. Yeah.
And you'll mostly find that let's say, for example, the plaintiff is the person who brings the court, the court to the case. The one who brings the suit to court. Yeah. So you'd mostly find that I lost my chain of thought, I think, when we laughed, but it's okay. So you'll mostly find that the person who has been injured is the one who will bring the suit in court. And now, of course, the other person, the owner of the vehicle or the driver, will say, there was no zebra crossing here.
Yeah.
You know, of course, when you're going to bring the suit in court, you're not going to say that I crossed where there is no zebra crossing. You say I was crossing, rightfully so, and this motor vehicle came at a high speed and ikanigonga, and you know, that's how I fractured my leg or something like that. And then now the driver would probably come and say, the advocate of the driver will say in their statement, no, this person was probably maybe on the wrong side of the road, or they were crossing wrongly, or they didn't actually, they usually say they didn't look left
and right.
Before crossing. So that's how the other advocate tries to apportion blame to the person who is injured. But so if you were to go back to like the initial process, of course the police is always involved in all these three cases. The police officer will come, and you will now in this case they'll probably go with the driver to the police station, because of course this person will be injured, and if they're injured, they definitely have to go to hospital. So when they go there, they of course fill the police abstract, and we said what is in the police abstract.
Apportioning of blame.
Apportioning of
It's also very important to note that also it must not be on the zebra crossing. Like, here's the zebra crossing. If you are maybe 100 meters from the zebra crossing, then you are rightfully crossing the road. It must not just be on the point where the zebra crossing is. Because that's also a point which would try to say, as the plaintiff's advocate, that my client would not be on the zebra crossing, but was 100 meters either before or after the zebra crossing.
Because ideally, once you get to the zebra crossing, you're supposed to slow down. That's actually the rule. Of course, people don't do that.
Of course, we don't really slow down, but that's what we are told at driving school, that you need to slow down once you're approaching the zebra crossing.
So definitely now, on the part of let's say the person who has been hurt, the person who has been injured, you will need to go for medical examination, and they will the person who's examining you will have to fill something called a P3 form, because that's also something that you will have to bring to court as one of the documents. So the P3 form will probably say that the cause of the injuries is an accident, and then these are the specific injuries. It's very important to state the specific injuries, because the level of your injuries will determine the compensation that you get. So remember that when you go to hospital, keep the receipts,
even for the slightest drugs.
And you'll find that some receipts from, like, for example, KNH, Kenyatta Hospital, you will find that they are the receipts that usually, like, zikika sana, you can't see the writing anymore.
You can take photos.
So take photos immediately, so that you have the
records.
So that you have the records, because like we had said, for special damages, these are things that have been recorded. Something that, like, for example, you bought medicine, you have a receipt for it, or you have an M-Pesa message. An M-Pesa message, they would suffice. Or let's say you went for an X-ray, they gave you a receipt for that, and things like that. Those are things that you will need to attach. Something that you need to prove specifically. So I think the difference between this one and the one that we talked about earlier is the P3 form. The abstract is the same, with the same details. And remember, the abstract mentions the insurance company. So that, because there's this third-party risks where the insurance usually covers the owner of the vehicle plus any other third party who would be involved in an accident or something like that. So we will tell you about how you can claim from the insurance later.
But it's very important to note that when you are going to court, it's very difficult. It's not very difficult, sorry. I meant it would be tricky to attach an insurance company, because as we have realized that most insurance companies are going down. So if they have a moratorium or they're undergoing liquidation or insolvency or whatnot, it will be very difficult for you to get back your money from them.
Yes.
So ideally, the most preferable thing to do is to sue the driver and the owner of the vehicle for vicarious liability.
Yeah.
That is, the owner of the vehicle, of course, has some liability because he owns the vehicle,
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be very important to kwa your suit, you put the driver and the owner of the vehicle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because now you see, for example, like you get the way these companies, let's say, for example, if there's a moratorium against an insurance company and you had instituted a suit against them, before you continue, you have to seek leave.
Yeah.
Like you have to again go and apply to the court, oh, this company is under insolvency, ama wamepewa moratorium, can we get leave so that we can continue this suit against them?
Yes.
And trust me, the lawyers of the insurance company will maximize on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
They will try to get your suit dismissed or struck out based on that reason only. So your lawyer will probably advise you, and as of course that's the disclaimer that what we are giving you here is not
legal advice.
Legal advice, and we cannot rely on it to say that we advised you and hold us liable.
Yeah.
But mostly your lawyer will advise you to go against you sue the driver and the owner.
And the owner of the vehicle. So that now them, by themselves, they would now sue their insurance to get the money that they used replaced. Yeah.
Yeah, so like once they pay you, now they can go and claim. Either just from their offices, or if the insurance company refuses, they can also sue. They can sue the insurance company in what we call a declaratory suit, and they will get their money
back after the compensation.
Yeah, so I was saying the difference. I mentioned the P3 form, and then also you can get general damages.
Yes. So now in this case, general damages would be for pain and suffering. Like the pain that I went through as a pedestrian who was hit. They would have, of course, it's going to be regulated by court, because for general damages, we don't really plead specific amounts. They would say maybe if I hurt my head, this is the total amount of money that people who have hurt their head initially are given.
Yes.
So now that's what they'll give you.
Yeah, it's something that we borrowed from our colonial masters. It's called like judicial precedent, so that because you cannot ascertain the amount of pain and suffering that someone has gone through based on what maybe they hurt their head or they fractured their leg. But when you go to the previous cases, you would find that, let's say, people were awarded 50,000 for breaking their toe or things like that. So now when your lawyer, when they are putting that case in court, and that's why we say it's important to have the specific injuries that someone had. So they will go and say that this my client aliumia hivi na hivi na hivi, and in previous cases a similar person who was hurt in a similar way was awarded this amount. And then now the other advocate will be like, okay, so for example, you say he was awarded 500,000. This other advocate will go and look for a case where they were awarded like
50,000.
So now it's up to the judge to determine is this, and based on also inflation and things like that, and then you will be able to get your compensation.
Yeah.
So you will get special damages. This is the amount of money that you used to spend on drugs and
hospital
checkups
bills,
and things like that, transport. I mean, you can put anything there so long as you have the messages to show for it.
Yeah.
And then you'll get the general damages, which is for your pain and suffering. Yeah. So
now we'd go to the last one, where a PSV hits somebody and they die. So the first important thing is that we must determine what was the cause of the death. You know, if I hit you and you don't die out of the accident, then we can't say I am liable for that. So we must first establish causation to show that maybe when I hit you, you maybe broke your head instantly and you died out of the accident.
Yeah.
Yes.
And of course, because now the person has died, there's a video that we did on how can you represent someone who
is dead.
Of course, because they're not here anymore, you can't put their name there as a party to the suit, but also you can't go in your own capacity because you're not the one who was hurt.
Yeah.
So you have to apply to court. There's usually a process. If you refer to our episode,
there's a video.
Episode 3 or episode 4, I think, that talks about how you can represent someone who is dead. You will go and apply for a grant. It's just because it's something that you want to represent them in court, it's a limited grant. It should be out within 2 weeks. if you have all your documentation. So after you get that, you can go to court on behalf of this person who died. Unasema this person was walking along this route when he was hit by this motor vehicle, and then they died. So in such an instance, I've not seen special damages sana
for that,
because now there is actually because of mortuary expenses.
Yes.
Mortuary expenses and burial
and if
expenses.
They did postmortem.
Yeah, and if they did postmortem, so like you'll come and claim this person, the postmortem fees ni he, the other one is burial expenses ni he,
the charges staying at the mortuary. So they normally charge per day.
Yeah,
no?
I think
they charge per day.
Yeah.
Yes.
So those are the things that you will add there, and then that will be the special damages. Of course, remember receipts.
Again.
Receipts. If you don't have receipts, you will not get the
money.
Okay, but maybe you would, because of course they expect that this person died, and of course they were buried, and there was mortuary expenses. But anyway, you wouldn't get as much as you would have spent on if you don't attach the receipts.
Yes.
Yeah. So in addition to those special damages, now there's the special category of general damages in this instance, because now this person, you can't say he has fractured his leg, he's dead. You can't say he has hurt his head, he's already dead. So the things that are there, they will just generalize pain and suffering, which usually is around 50,000 to 150 at most, by the way, because they usually say, let's say for example, if this person died immediately, the pain and suffering is
less than if you had been admitted to hospital
for
or something.
Long. If it's 7 days, by the way, you can ask for more. You will of course look at previous cases and things like that. So like, let's say this person was alive for 7 days and they were in severe pain. So they probably you will claim for
the money
for pain and suffering. And also there's something else,
life expectancy.
Yes. But this, so for life expectancy, what they usually do, they check
the amount of time. For example, they say life expectancy now is between 55 to 60. For example, like an average Kenyan would live between 55 to 57. And then now they deduct, maybe you are 29. So they take 29, they take 55 minus 29. That's the number of years. And then now they calculate the amount of money that, for example, you are earning. But there's also a percentage of it. Like they don't give you, if it was 100,000 per month, you multiply by maybe 20 years because maybe you are 40 or something. There's a percentage. But then again, we are trying to, if for example you are the breadwinner of a family, we try to calculate to see, if you died and your children are not going to school or something, and your life was cut short through an accident, then therefore they need to calculate some money to give to your family also, just so that wakajishikilia.
Because now, like, what life expectancy really means is nikama, how much would you earn in the event that you are alive. And we forgot to mention this part where if you were injured, you can claim for loss of income. Let's say you didn't die. Let's say if you were injured and you used to play football and you were paid for it, and let's say you fractured your leg, and you had to amputate your leg and you can't play football again, that's something that you would incorporate in the general damages for that instance. But now here where you died, for loss of expectancy, they have to say this is how much you would have been worth in the event that you were alive. So if you are, let's say, a teacher and you used to earn 20,000 and you were 25 years old and you expected to retire at 55, they will take those 30 years, they multiply with how much you're earning times something they call a multiplier, and then they will determine, this is how much your family will be given.
Now they would give it to your family as compensation.
Yes. And loss of course, loss of dependency, you can also get that. So in addition to the special damages, you'll have damages for. And damages just means, I think by now people understand what damages means.
Like the payment,
compensation.
Compensation,
like money you're given to compensate you for your pain and for how much you spent. So of course, again, there would be issues of, I think this liability things always comes in the general, the contributory
negligence.
Like how much did this person who died contribute to the accident happening now? So in that instance, of course, however much you're given, if you're given 10 million, they will take away 20%. So maybe your family will get 8 million. Yeah, so those are the different compensations that you would get under accidents, and it's a very common area also. Like a lot of things, a lot of accidents happen, and you might know someone who maybe is in such a situation, and you would be able to advise them, or just, of course, most of the details you'd be able to go to court. And if you feel like your damages will be less than 1 million, or you're willing to forgo the above 1 million, you can go to small claims. And in the small claims court, you won't take long, like
6 months.
6 months. Within 6 months, they're supposed to have determined the case, and you will be done. Yeah, so with that, we are done with today's episode. We hope you learned. It was short and sweet. Yeah, so remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment down below. We would be willing to
answer your question.
Yeah.
See you next time.
Bye.
Cut.